So, why are people moving from New York to Charlotte, North Carolina in droves? That's right, 6,000 people every year are moving from New York, and that's New York City proper in the five boroughs, to Charlotte, North Carolina. In this video, we're going to dive into all the differences between New York and Charlotte, North Carolina, and share with you why people want to move here at the drop of a hat. Now be sure to stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm going to share with you a pro tip to make you feel like home. I'm 𝗖𝘀 𝗨𝘀 with the True Lane Group, and if you're looking for everything eat, sleep, play, the good and the bad of Charlotte, North Carolina, you have come to the right channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell to make sure you're staying up to date on everything new happening in the market and happening around Charlotte. So let's dive into today's video because I have a lot of content to cover and it's all very important. So why is it that people are moving from New York to Charlotte, North Carolina? Well, as an ex-Yankee and New Yorker myself, I can tell you that when my father retired from the New York City Fire Department, they moved us to North Carolina. There were many reasons behind that, and I finally made my way to Charlotte. And as a New Yorker, I know exactly why. So let's dive in and share with you the top reasons why people are moving to Charlotte, North Carolina. Reason number one, the actual cost of living. Now, in some of my other videos, I've touched on the fact that the cost of living in Charlotte is relatively low compared to the rest of the nation. But what I haven't talked about is the specific nature of New York compared to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, if you were to have the same individual with a $100,000 salary after rent, utilities, taxes, living in New York, you're left with only $24,000. Those same things and those same items being paid, of course, at Charlotte rates, you're actually left with $33,000 at the end of the year. Now, to some that might not be significant, but to many it is. And that's why so many are moving here. Now again, the national average, Charlotte ranks 5% less when it comes to actual cost of living compared to the nation. Compared to New York, it's quite higher. So let's talk about some of the details to cost of living, because of course that's extremely important. One of the things that has to do with cost of living is our next topic, and that's affordable housing. Now, New York, let's call it unaffordable housing. Am I right? With regards to the actual average costs between New York and North Carolina, in New York, your average home size is about 1,100 square feet. In North Carolina, Charlotte specifically, your average home square footage is 2,000 square feet. Now, the reason I point that out, because what I'm about to tell you is regarding the cost of said homes in each of these regions. And I think the size is pretty important to go ahead and talk about. So let's talk about the actual costs. In New York, and this is New York proper, the city, the five boroughs, which are included in this with regards to these statistics, the average cost of a home is $739,000. Now, mind you, on average, the size of a home is 1,100 square feet. Now let's talk about Charlotte prices. In Charlotte, a single family home on average is actually going to cost you $393,000. And of course, the average was 2,000 square feet. So let's do the math here. It's almost double the square footage for almost half the price. That is a big difference, and if you're looking to move to Charlotte, it's certainly going to be a huge savings. Not to mention, if you're selling your property in New York, think about how much farther those dollars will go in the real estate market. Now, obviously not everybody is going to purchase when moving here, and I completely understand that. So let's talk about rent. The average rent in New York is about $3,400. Now granted, that's spread out between the five boroughs, as I said earlier, not just Manhattan. In Charlotte, North Carolina, the average rent is $2,200. Now, let me specify that this is for a single family home. So in New York, obviously, we already said single family homes about 1,100 square feet. Charlotte, 2,000 square feet. You're getting far more for the money spent. And in addition to that, Charlotte usually comes with a backyard. Kind of nice. Now this brings us to our next point. Now, while this might not necessarily be cost of living, it's certainly a comparison between New York. Schools and our children's education is extremely important to us. When I say us as a people, us as a nation, it's something that we care about. let's take a look at the comparison of public schools from New York to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, in looking up these statistics, I did have a bit of a jaw-dropping moment and I had to double check them, but it does turn out that these statistics are accurate. In New York City schools, the average ratio between student to teacher is 3,491 students to one teacher. Now, mind you, my mind was boggled on this, and there's a lot of deeper reasons for this that I am not even going to get into on this video because it's quite a bit. But that makes it glaringly obvious how challenging it is for students to get a proper education when you have those kinds of ratios. In addition to that, only 64% of the teachers that were teaching in New York were certified, and only 34% of high school age students were college ready by the end of their high school years. Now let's talk about Charlotte City Schools. Now Charlotte is quite vast, and I have touched on this in other videos. We have public schools, private schools, magnet schools, charter schools, you name it. For the purposes of this video, I'm focusing primarily on Mecklenburg County public schools. The ratio for student to teacher is 16 to 1. Now, the interesting part about the statistic, it's actually high for the state. The state average is actually 15 to 1, we're at 16 to 1. Still phenomenal numbers when you're talking averages compared to New York. In addition to that, 82.7% of teachers are certified and 94.5% have been teaching for 3 years or more. When it comes to your child's education, Charlotte, North Carolina public schools are certainly where it's at, and your child can get a quality education even in the public school system. This brings me to my next point. Let's talk a little bit about taxes. I know, that ugly, dirty word that no one wants to talk about, but it has to be spoken about. Property taxes make up a huge portion of living expenses for those who live in New York. Now, in New York, of course, again, on average, the boroughs, your property taxes are about 19.93%. That's quite a bit. Now, let's talk about Charlotte and 3 of the surrounding cities to Charlotte to make a comparison. Charlotte, North Carolina, the average property taxes that we're seeing in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, because it's the city and the county together, is 1.31%. Pretty nice, especially compared to 19. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about the other 3 cities that I recommend for low tax rates just around Charlotte. Concord, North Carolina, comes in Rowan County at 1.2%. Denver, which is right next to the lake, comes in at 1.07%, and drumroll, just south of the border, because we work in South Carolina as well, in Fort Mill, South Carolina, your total for taxes and property taxes would be 0.55%. Now, all of these are wonderful places to live, but if you're looking to save money and make your salary go farther, look no further than Charlotte, North Carolina and the surrounding towns. Now, I'll add one more thing about taxes, and it's income taxes. Now, in this particular instance, of course, Charlotte still ranks lower, but let's take a look at the averages. In New York, you could be paying as high as 8.8% in income taxes. Charlotte, you're going to pay about 4.9%. Again, glaringly different. Certainly something that's going to give you more bang for your buck and make your salary and pay go farther. Now, one of the next things that people look at when it talks about, the actual quality of life and cost of living is the actual job market. So let's talk a little bit about the job market and unemployment. In New York, the unemployment rate at the time of this video in 2022 is 11.4%. Now, taking a look at Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, our unemployment rate is 4.9. Now, of course, these statistics take into account the actual population, so it is based on percentages. Now, another way to look at this when we're talking about cities that are bustling and full of opportunity, etc., is to take a look at the gross domestic product, or GDP. The GDP in New York in 2021 was 5%. Now, when we take a look at Charlotte's GDP in 2021 was 6.7%. Now, granted, at the time of this video, we're mid-2022, so we're not quite sure where we're going to be, but at this point in time, New York is trending down and Charlotte is actually trending above what we hit last year, which means we do have job growth, we have economy growth, and businesses are moving to the area. All of this equals more opportunity for those that are moving here. Yes, even you 6,000 New Yorkers come in here every year, there is opportunity. Now, last but certainly not least, because there's so many other differences between New York and Charlotte, but let's talk about the weather. Now, I know I grew up in New York, but I hate the cold. I'll be the first to tell you, I absolutely hate the cold. And one of the things I disliked the most about New York was the gray skies. You know what I'm talking about. The gray skies between October and April that just would not go away. You know, even if it wasn't raining, it just felt gloomy. And honestly, I've spoken to many other New Yorkers who have moved to the area and they didn't know they had seasonal depression until experiencing a full year in Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte has about 214 sunny days throughout the year, and the cool thing is, even the days that aren't sunny, it's because it rained for part of the day or was slightly cloudy and then cleared up completely. In addition to that, you're actually going to be blessed with very mild temperatures. We don't go below 51 as an average, even in winter, as our daytime highs, which is pretty freaking awesome. I love it. Now in summer, I will say it does get a little toasty, but anybody who's lived in the city knows that New York gets toasty as well. The difference is, in North Carolina, everybody has air conditioning. I mean everybody. In addition to that, you can also open your pool as early as April and close it as late as October. Why? Well, let's take a look at the actual averages of temperature in those months. In the month of April, the average high is 73 degrees. And in October, the average high is 72. That's right. That gives you almost 7 months of pool time. I don't know about you, but I would trade my 2 months of pool time in New York for 7 months of pool time any day. And in fact, I have laid in the pool and watched the leaves change and fall off, and it was absolutely fantastic. Now, in North Carolina and Charlotte specifically, you do still get 4 different seasons. That's right. We do have the summer and the fall and the spring and the winter. It happens. But you're not gonna get snow. That's right, we usually get snow about 1 time a year. The whole city shuts down for a day. It's actually kind of fun to have a snow day, but it is not something that stops us because it usually doesn't happen. In addition, with regards to weather, while yes, it does get a little bit warm in summer, the mild winters are also gonna keep your energy bills in a much more stable place. So if you like the warmth, you like the sun, and you're not a huge fan of really rough winters, Charlotte is definitely a place for you to come compared to New York. Now, I promised you an insider tip to make you feel at home when moving to Charlotte, North Carolina from New York, and here it is. As a fellow New Yorker, my pizza means a lot to me. And while it took a little while to find these places, here are my top 2 picks for the best pizza places in Charlotte to make you feel like home. Coming in second place is Sal's Pizza. Now, Sal's is delicious and they have quite a few options. I think they're phenomenal for a nice thin crust on the bottom, but just that perfect little bit of burnt. And when I say burnt, you know exactly what I mean, New Yorkers, just a little bit. Coming in first place, however, 𝗖𝗎's. 𝗖𝗎's is on the north side of the city, and I think hands down it is the best pizza in Charlotte for New Yorkers. In fact, the owner actually is from Brooklyn. You can tell why the pizza is so good. Now, I did throw one more on the list though. This one is not quite New York pizza, but if you love brick oven pizza, this one will blow you away. In addition, their cannolis are phenomenal. Inisio's Brick Oven Pizza in Dilworth is to die for. In summertime, by the way, they have a phenomenal pizza because they have different rotating ones that they come in for season with lemon slices. I know it sounds odd, lemon slices, delicious ricotta, as well as a fig puree that goes on top. And oh my goodness, it is the most amazing flavors you'll ever experience. So remember, if you're moving to Charlotte, North Carolina in 9 days or 90 days, I would love the opportunity to help you move here. I'll do everything we need to do to give you the exact experience you need in moving to Charlotte. Give us a call, text, or email, 𝗖𝗀 with the True Lane Group, and be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell to keep you up to date on what's going on in the market and make sure you know everything you need to know before moving or relocating to Charlotte. Until our next video, I hope to see you around town.